It is now 10 o'clock. Good morning. I am Aaron Blumberg, Swiftland's Continuing Education Coordinator, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to the STEAM Games, Teaching Through Games and Competitions. We have a wonderful learning opportunity ready for you this morning with Ryan and Hillary Shore of Full Steam Ahead. Full Steam Ahead is an enrichment program that integrates the arts and sciences through high-quality, engaging instruction with cutting-edge technology. Learning is hands-on, project-based, and very fun. They help students become creative, fearless problem solvers, possessing the skills to confidently tackle the future. Please welcome Ryan and Hillary and enjoy their webinar this morning. Ryan and Hillary.
Hi there, everybody.
Hello, everyone. This is Ryan.
And I'm Hillary. Thank you for being with us this morning.
We're bringing you the STEAM games today, and we're long overdue for this one. We've talked about a lot of these games in different places, different trainings, different workshops. Now we've put all of them together and then some into one webinar here for your pleasure. So we've got lots and lots and lots of information to share with you today. We have occasionally we do webinars where we have way too much information. This is one of those. So we're going to have lots of games and ideas to throw your way. We're taking the shotgun approach. So hopefully this will be a great resource for you to rewatch. You can go back and re-listen to any of these things on the Swiftland website because
you might want to revisit this. All right, so our goals. We're going to help you make an argument that quality STEAM activities and learning are essential. We're going to try to give you lots of ideas and activities for implementing STEAM, but through games and competitions in your library. Tell you why STEAM is important in non-traditional learning environments such as libraries, and help you create a process for figuring out which games are good and quality and which games you really want to use.
So who are we? Why are we experts on this topic? Well, like Aaron said, we're Full Steam Ahead. Hillary and I started Full Steam Ahead about 2 years ago. And we're an extracurricular enrichment program that focuses on the arts and science. We both have a ton of experience teaching kids in this capacity, back to our days as public school educators.
So I'll introduce my husband, Ryan Shore.
Hi.
His official title is the STEM Guru at Full Steam Ahead. He taught 5th grade math and science in the public schools. He won the Golden Apple, woohoo! And he also he specializes in the STEAM curriculum and program design. He's really good at diving into new content and presenting it in a really, really fun way for the kids and showing them how to solve problems without being held back.
And that's really always been my focus. Is I've always asked myself, how can I make this fun for kids? And so that's why we have so many games to bring to you, because quite often games is the best way to make it fun. And sitting next to me, my lovely wife Hillary. She's our music guru at Full Steam Ahead. She's got 1 year on me in experience as a public school educator. I'll never be able to catch her, will I?
No, I got you.
And she's a music curriculum and development and instruction expert. She is, throughout the state of Florida, she has been contributing to assessment projects and curriculum building projects for many, many years.
So STEAM for us is more than just science, technology, engineering, arts, and math, although in our program we're a little more music, so we say math and music. It's more than just the subjects. It's a whole mindset. If you've been with us before, you know our spiel. It puts together creativity, problem solving, critical thinking. It builds kids up to be able to solve problems and persevere with the confidence and knowledge that they need to push forward. And it gives them some really, really valuable life skills that are very career oriented.
And sometimes in traditional education in schools, they get so fixated on content, on standards, and what specific skills, or rather what specific content kids need to learn. We're more process oriented. We're more skills oriented. So we want to give kids a chance to try out new things, pursue those alternative passions, experiment and explore without a fear of failure, all while teaching them some of life's most valuable skills.
So this is where we like to get everyone participating just so we can see our audience. we want to know where you are with the STEM versus STEAM thing. How on board are you? How much experience do you have? So what we're going to do is there's a draw tool up at the top. We like getting feedback from people and keeping things kind of fun and engaging. So so you're going to, on this little line up here at the top.
Right up, not there, right up here, somewhere along this line. You're going to mark where along this continuum you fall, whether you're more left brain, more math and science, more logic, or you're more right brain, more creative, more spatial, more artistic and musical. So we're going to go ahead and enable drawing for you guys.
So if you can just kind of go up, then you can draw on your screen. Maybe just put your initial or a little check just to see where you are. If you're not into that, you can type it in the chat box. So that's
There's my
Ryan right there.
Hey, all right. So it's working over there.
Well, I got to put mine on now.
We got some circles over on the brain.
I'm going to put mine right here.
You're off the charts.
Yeah, apparently. Woohoo!
Oh, someone figured out how to use pink.
Oh, excellent. I can tell you're like right in the middle.
Must be Crystal. Hi, Crystal. Oh, we got a couple off the charts over there. They're even past
Excellent.
Right.
I like this group, that kind of people. All right, very nice, Linda. Cool.
All right, looks like I am the most left-brain person in the room today, so we'll keep that in mind as we are talking.
Well, this is good. So you're definitely going to get some music and arts games from me, but I know Ryan's got a ton of STEM games for you, so we should balance this out pretty nicely here today.
All right, we're going to go ahead and turn draw off. Thank you all for playing along.
Oh, that was fun. Okay.
Okay.
So
moving along.
So what does STEAM look like? These are some pictures from our program. It's very colorful. Looks a little bit crazy. And you see our description. There's a lot of kind of opposites: chaotic but organized, loud but focused. We like to take kind of like that right brain and left brain stuff and put them together and find ways to balance everything out for the kids and have a ton of fun. We've got some little bits and Legos. We've got some music. That little STEAM picture, they're building a photo booth.
All right, Nellie can't hear anything. Is anybody else having any problems hearing? No, we're all good?
No.
Okay. Sorry, Nellie.
Okay.
We'll see if Aaron can help you out there. Okay, thank you all for your feedback.
Okay. We'll keep going. I hope it comes back, Millie.
All right, so we want to get into planning a STEAM game or a STEAM lesson. And when you're planning for STEAM games, there's a few things you want to look for. We want to be able to provide scalability in our games, scalability in our lessons. A lot of times in a lot of settings, we have kids of very different backgrounds and kids with very different age ranges. Just by the nature of what we do, a lot of times we'll have kids from 7 years old to 12 years old in our program, or kids from 10 to 15 in our program. So we want our lessons to be scalable. Of course, we want strong links to STEAM skills as well. We want to bring in as much science, technology, engineering, art, and music as we can.
All right, so also we want to make sure it's really, really engaging. We've had a lot of luck when you play into the popular, whatever the new trends are, whether they're fidget spinners, which you'll hear a little bit about in a while, you use that and get them going with it, and it works out beautifully. We'll show you how to make that happen. Hands-on and open-ended. Competition.
All right,
Ryan,
so,
this is you.
Yeah, competition is kind of a controversial word, especially in the classroom. A lot of people are anti-competition. They say it kind of breeds an environment that you don't really want in your classroom. There's definitely pros and cons to competition. What I really like about competition is that it encourages open-ended ingenuity. A lot of times we kind of show kids how something should be done, and then they do it, and that's that. But when you have a competition, it kind of lends itself to a variation of different ideas. It also motivates some hard-to-motivate students. Some kids will, kind of stand idly by until they have a chance to prove what they can do. And then, some kids, I was one of those kids, they're just fiercely competitive and they just hate to lose. And so it's really going to get the best out of them.
And then you have the people who like
we're sticking with the pros.
Oh, yeah, okay.
It provides context for many different types of activities as well. So sometimes we just have these random activities that don't seem to fit anywhere else. And we say, hey, well, you know what? It's a competition. So that's why we're doing it.
And all of a sudden, everyone just jumps on board and it works.
Exactly. We also, I really like giving time management practice.
Mm-hmm.
Kids, especially, in the younger grades, but really surprisingly in the older grades too, in the upper grades, even in high school, time management really, really lacks in my experience. So giving them, these timelines, these deadlines, these big projects helps them manage that. It's really a real world approach, which if you think about it, the professional setting that most people are in is somewhat competitive. And it can help certain students gain confidence. Now, the flip side of that coin, some students are way too competitive and they shut down, they get upset, they cry, it's not good. And then some students, like the ones sitting next to me, are strictly anti-competition. They don't want to be a part of it. And I actually have a theory that it's because she's overly competitive. But maybe that's just because I'm married to her. It can also cause some students to lose confidence. So some students are gaining, but some students, they could feel bad about themselves. And if you don't set it up right, it can rely solely on extrinsic motivation, which we want to try to build intrinsic motivation as well. And competitions by their nature are fairly product driven.
I think basically, it can be really, really beneficial to set things up as a competition. Just be careful how you do it and know your audience and know your kids.
Yeah, and here's a couple of tips just for using competition, because I recommend it. It's very, very useful in my classroom, but we want to use it strategically and sparingly. It shouldn't be an everyday thing. The other thing that I find helps more than anything, the second one, don't force it. Don't make kids compete. Give students an option to participate or an option to share, especially. So you can always say, all right, here's your project, here's what we're doing. If you want to submit your entry into the competition, you can, but you certainly don't have to. You still have to build it, but you just don't have to show anybody what you did or show anybody what you made. That eases a lot of anxiety from kids that don't want to be a part of that competition. And that allows the kids who want to an opportunity to do so. I also like to award superlatives that emphasize process over product. So risk takers and big thinkers and time managers, people who are really focused on the process, I like to give them superlative awards instead of just, the person who won. Give kids as much time as you can. Processing time is immensely important. I try not to rank the kids. I only show either the top place or the top 3 places. If you've got 20 kids, it's not important who got place number 4 through 20. It's only important who won and got second place, and that way they're not really feeling bad about losing. And then finally, I like to let the kids decide the winner, if it's a subjective thing, like when we do art competitions and things like that. And we give them some guidance on how to select that. So just some tips on using competition in your classroom.
Okay, so just some warm-up games that we like to use. These are great for kids and adults alike. We've done a lot of these in the public school systems at our own professional development days. But this little link down here for icebreakers has a ton of resources, a ton of different icebreakers. We're going to show you 2.
Yeah, this is something that you want to go back and check out. Don't check it out now. We're still talking.
Yeah,
but yeah.
And just in general, this little icon or this little picture, sharing of interests and ideals is a great way, a great platform to break the ice between kids. Just let them talk about what they like.
So yeah, we can really use games from the very minute they walk in the classroom to the end.
Snowball fight. So basically, take a couple minutes and the kids write about themselves. Give them some specific things to say: hobbies, place of birth, an interesting fact, where they go to school, what grade they're in, something along those lines. crumble up the piece of paper, and then for 30 seconds they just throw the paper at each other. It's hilarious. It's super fun.
It instantly gets kids out of their shit.
Yeah, and adults.
And adults.
And then after that 30 seconds, I recommend setting a timer. Take the closest snowball, and each person reads it out loud, and then we try to guess who wrote it. It's a lot of fun. It gets people smiling, and it breaks the ice with a snowball. I think I'm funny. All right, so 2 truths and a lie. This is another one, super fun. Right, each participant writes 3 sentences about themselves. 2 true, 1 not. And then you read them, and then we try to decide which one is not true. And I like to do it where everyone raises their hand with the number that they think is not true. Like they hold up 1, 2, or 3 fingers to indicate which is which. And then you just find the answer, and then it's funny.
This is a neat way to get kids to...
I hear you, Elizabeth.
That's a neat way to get kids to learn a little bit about each other. Elizabeth is saying...
Oops, I did 2 lies. Yeah.
Yeah, you really... Actually, what I always do is I
give an example first.
Exactly. I give them an example first. I model it, and I say, look, this one is true, this one is true, this one is false. And tell them, kind of very deliberately.
All right. So, moving on to our STEM games.
Well, sorry, just before we move on, those are just 2 easy examples. We chose those because they require almost no setup, no preparation whatsoever. But there are hundreds and hundreds of icebreaker games. Getting your kids comfortable is an essential part of having an effective lesson. So if you've got a new group, kids you don't know, it is well worth the 5, 10, 15 minutes, depending on how much time you have, to get the kids comfortable. They're way more likely to open up and engage in whatever else you're doing.
Yeah, for sure. Pat, do you have a question?
Or you agree?
Oh.
All right, so we're going to move on to the STEM games. Pat, if you have a question, you can type it right in the chat.
Since there are 2 of us, while one of us is talking, the other one can be answering questions.
I get easily distracted.
Mm-hmm.
So we're gonna take you through some STEM games here. There's lots and lots and lots of different games out there. I want to start just with some science games. I was a science teacher, in Collier County here for a bunch of years, and throughout my career as a science teacher, I came up with some neat games that I wanted to share with you guys. One of them is food chain, or if you want to get really crazy, food web tag. And essentially, we do some background, we build some background knowledge about food chains and how they work. And then we would divide the group, however big it is, into 4 categories. We'd have top predators, omnivores, herbivores, and producers. Now, when you divide them up, it's going to be really, really, really helpful to label them as well. Have them wear like a name tag. Have them wear a little necklace that has their particular category labeled on an index card or something along those lines. But you're going to have 1 top predator, 2 omnivores, 4 herbivores, and 8 producers approximately. The idea being that it kind of mirrors the energy pyramid, or how energy is transferred in an ecosystem. You're always going to have way more producers than you are going to have herbivores. You're going to have more herbivores and omnivores than you are top predators. If you don't have that, then your game is out of balance. You can also throw in crazy rules like, all right, if the predator eats all of the omnivores, then he's going to starve. So they have to strategically run down and track down the people that they're going to eat. The producers, for them, it's all about just trying to survive. And that's very true too. You can set time limits on this. You can have characters or players respawn. So after a certain amount of time, they can be reborn. There's a lot of different variations, a lot of different spins you can do on this game, but it's a really fun game. It can get pretty complex pretty quick, but the kids certainly enjoy it. And
their teachers from their school will love you for it.
Yes, this
supporting their curriculum.
This aligns with Florida Standard SC.4.P. Sorry.
Don't tell me you know that for sure.
I actually
probably do.
Probably remove it. All right. The other one, is similar but different. It's the adaptations throwdown. So we taught about adaptations and mutations and more or less evolution in the fourth grade science curriculum. And so what we did was I had the kids design their own organism. They created a designer organism based on some of the realistic adaptations and mutations that we had seen and talked about by looking at a whole bunch of different animals. So what they would do is they would create their own animal, and they would list out all the adaptations that that animal has. And then we would have them kind of battle going back and forth. So one kid would say, well, mine can hold its breath for up to an hour and dive down to 1,000 feet. And the other kid will say, well, mine has super sharp talons, so when you come up to the surface, I'm going to get you. And they would kind of go back and forth trying to defend their animal and seeing which animal would survive an all-out brawl here. So especially for your energetic boys and some of your really creative girls here, it's going to be a lot of fun. All right,
engineering.
So getting into just a quick sampling of some science games, some engineering games for you. This is one of my. This is one of my favorite activities. This is the build off we use very often. I'd say every other week, something like that. But it's semi-resource dependent, so it's really helpful to have Legos, Tinker Toys, K'NEX, Minecraft, Tinkercad, Burglar Bead, Styrofoam. Really any different building materials, but you can do it with as many as just 3 or 4 different building materials. You can use Styrofoam, Legos, Tinkercad. We'll tell you a little bit more about those later. But the idea is that you're going to randomly assign each group of 1 to 3 students a building material. So one group will get Legos, one group will get Tinker Toys, one group will get K'NEX, one group will be building with Minecraft, so on and so forth. Now, they're each going to be building with a different material, but they'll all be building the same thing. And they'll have 10 to 15 minutes. So I'll say, all right, in this round for the build-off, we are going to build a submarine or a Ferris wheel, like you see in the picture there. And so then they would all have 10 to 15 minutes to quickly build their interpretation of a Ferris wheel. At the end, I give each group 1 minute to share. And that way they can just kind of show off what they've built. They're not always successful, so I usually give a small reward. We use Steam Cents. So we usually give kids 1 Steam Cent if they've completed the challenge, if it somewhat resembles whatever we told them to build. And then we give a second Steam Cent for the People's Choice favorite, which we just let the kids vote, and they can't vote on their own. We just let them vote, and they're able to share, or they're able to choose their favorite.
Remember, as you're doing this, the tips we were giving about how to plan a STEAM activity. Make sure it's scalable when you do this, as in, a low entry, high ceiling. A Ferris wheel. It can be very, very complicated if the seats move. If the seats can swing back and forth so it doesn't put people upside down, or that could be for your older kids, or a little more basic. So it just keep it something that can be easy or tough.
Yeah, I get a lot of mileage out of this game because there's so many variations. Mm-hmm. Kids love it too. All right, getting into some coding now. Scratch is, in my opinion, hands down the most powerful coding platform for kids. It's built around a social network of coding.
Has anyone used Scratch before?
And if you have, then kudos. It's amazing. It's definitely worth putting in the time to try. So Scratch is, if you haven't heard of it, it's an icon-based coding platform where you drag and drop blocks of code to create complex formulas to create a program. Now, a lot of the games that you'll find, or a lot of the projects that you'll find in Scratch are games. So this is actually, letting the kids design their own games through coding. In fact, just last week, we hosted an Intro to Game Design, a coding camp. And I showed the kids how to make several different styles of games. You can create more than just games. You can create animations, and like I said, there's a whole social network behind it where kids can comment and kids can share projects, and everything in Scratch is open source. So any project that you find, any project that you see is available to copy, to use, to share. It makes it really powerful for the kids. So just last week, we had a camp where I taught them how to build several different styles of games. We taught them how to build a platformer game where you have a main character called the sprite. You can see this is a Flappy Bird here, but the sprites are down here, just kind of hiding over there. And the sprites are kind of like your characters that you need to move. So, in a platformer, your sprite's going to jump around the screen and avoid obstacles and try to get to the end. There's racing games where your sprite would try to basically do the same thing, but their movement would be a little different. They'd be racing through different obstacles. A clicker style game, I don't think you'd believe me if I told you, but they've become very, very popular. And the point of a clicker style game is to click very fast and a lot of times. And the more you click, the more you earn. There's actually auto clickers, and most kids that walk through your doors are going to have an auto clicker on their computer because they are obsessed with clicker style games. It's kind
Play
of
to the popular.
I'll show you an example of a clicker style game here in just a minute, but they're actually really easy to code, easy for the kids to create. It's a pretty low entry level. Like we were talking about, is important for these. Also, role-playing games, ones that have where the characters can make choices, and each choice leads to a different thing. They're fairly simple to make after some introductory scratch learning. We recently featured a project. It was a fidget spinner game, like Hillary keeps saying.
Does anyone have one?
Play to the popular. Kids. There's an obsession with fidget spinners. I already feel it kind of dying down a little bit, but we definitely we took full advantage of it while I was alive. We had our kids design a fidget spinner game. So we had our sprite spin. Very nice. We had our sprite spin, our character spin when they clicked on it. It turned out to be very math intensive, and I'll show you an example of what the code looked like. Awesome. We bought one for our 2-year-old. We actually 3D printed one for our 2-year-old too. But it's a clicker style game, and it allows you to upgrade it and get better bearings so it can spin faster, spin longer, and you can add coins. So I'll show you an example of what this looked like. This is one of our students' games from last week. So let me give you a quick tour of what's happening here. Over here, you click on the fidget spinner. This one doesn't actually work because it's just a photo of it. But you click on the fidget spinner, and it would start to spin at a random speed. So here's our code that kind of determines how fast it's going to start spinning. And then she set up a spin reduction ratio, meaning that that's how quickly or slowly it would slow down. So you'd click it, it would start spinning at a random speed, and then it would randomly start slowing down. And it would eventually come to a stop. Now, each time you click on it, you would earn coins, which could be used in your shop to upgrade it. And all these blocks of code here, and this is actually just the blocks of code for one of these, all these blocks of code took something and created a portion of this program. So let me show you the shop that she created. So here's where you could buy new fidget spinners, buy new costumes for your fidget spinner. She also set it up so you could upgrade your bearings here. So ABEC is an acronym. I forget what it stands for, but it has to do with the quality of the bearings, basically. And over here, she set up. This is my favorite part right here. This is a stroke of genius. She changes the spin speed by -1 divided by the spin reduction ratio times the ABEC. And these are variables being multiplied to increase the size of the denominator, which is set to be negative, which is going to decrease the spin speed.
Wow.
Amazing. This was a 12-year-old girl, by the way. So not only was she playing a game, not only was she designing a game, but she was also engaging in some pretty advanced mathematics. Yeah. It was really, really cool. Now, I don't want you to think that this was easy. I helped her with this. It took both of us a while to kind of figure this out. And this was, she didn't really develop this until the last day of a full week camp. So she was 20 hours into this game.
Yeah.
It takes time, but if we don't give the kids the opportunities, then they'll never be able to do this type of stuff.
And I think that's what Ryan is saying about giving them the time to explore and the resources to Can you guys hear us? Sorry about
Whoa,
that.
sorry, we lost you there for a second. Everybody okay?
Okay. Here.
All right, sorry guys. Yeah, no, that was a technical difficulty on our end. We are
internet went
back.
out. Sorry about that. Okay.
All right, hooray! Sorry guys. All right, good to be back.
Yeah.
All right, so carrying on here, we are talking about programming, and now we're getting into some electronics. So one of the things we also wanted to do as part of this presentation is show you how we use some of our favorite tools, like Scratch, in order to create games, in order to have kids learn these things through creating and playing games. So we're going to show you some more of our favorite tools here. Any of you guys ever used Littlebits before? If you haven't, Littlebits are an ideal game creation tool.
Super fun.
They're like snap circuits, but you can kind of see them down here. They allow you to add sound or motion or sensors to all kinds of things. So one of the games that we've created using Littlebits, and actually 3D printing as well, is Littlebits Soccer. And so we actually had the kids 3D print their own goal. Of course, you wouldn't need to do that. You could just create it out of cardboard or styrofoam or whatever you want. And then we designed a little goalie that would slide back and forth using the power of Littlebits there. We actually didn't have, this isn't our photo unfortunately, but we didn't have a powered soccer player here. We just used our own little 3D printed ball and 3D printed hockey stick. But Littlebits are awesome for creating games, and they teach kids engineering, problem solving skills. They teach them electronics, and they're just a really, really useful tool. Makey is another really popular tool for us. We make Makey pianos all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things we did recently, a really fun game that we had the kids, yay, Makey. We had the kids create an escape room. And in the escape room, we used Makey as kind of a focal point. And Makey it's an electronic circuit board. Actually, Hillary does a good job explaining it, so I'm going to let her do it.
It's a circuit board, and it basically becomes an extension of your computer keyboard. You hook those little colored wires up to here's my draw tool here. You hook these little colored wires up to the circuit board, and then it also goes into some other thing that conducts electricity. And this is the cord you hook the Makey up to your computer with. That's where it gets its electricity. And you can do a lot with the Makeys if you haven't used them to see what is a conductor and what is an insulator for electricity. And then you can go nuts with this. There's a ton of applications you can use. We used it to design an escape room with clues and puzzles to solve.
So yeah, what I did was we had the kids set it up so that they had to connect the circuit. They had to figure out how to connect two parts that were on opposite sides of the room. And when they did that, it actually activated a Scratch program that gave them the next clue that they needed. And so, using things like Makey or just the idea of an escape room is a really creative way to have kids problem solve and come up with neat ideas.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Next, we have robotics.
Robotics are, for my money, one of the easiest ways to create games. We've done hundreds and hundreds of different games using our robots, and it's one of the most effective ways to teach robotics and coding.
Who's played with Ozobots before?
Ozobots, if you've never played with them, they are these tiny little half-sphere robots, look like this right here, and they're basically designed to follow lines. When you buy an Ozobot, it comes with a couple of games that you can play. There's games online that you can play, but as usual, I like to create my own games. So we actually did all these around the time of the Olympics, the Summer Olympics, last summer. We had the 100-meter sprint where the kids would draw a line with codes to race across a large piece of paper. So the Ozobot is capable of reading codes as it traces these lines. And so it's a very simplistic version of coding for the kids, and they can try to see how fast they can get their Ozobot across.
So as you can see here, we did the races like the sprints, and then there's also the floor routine with gymnastics, basketball, and soccer. I know I used these Ozobots in a dance camp that I did, where the kids created their own dance, and then they used Scratch to create a program for the Ozobots. Actually, it was Ozoblockly, which is a very similar coding program. just designed to program the Ozobots, but the interface, it looks a lot like Scratch. It's called Ozo Blockly, and then we told the Ozobots to move in a circle for 5 seconds, and then freeze for 2 seconds, and then go forward for, etc. And then they made a dance that followed those same steps. So then the Ozobots did the dance while the kids actually physically did the dance. Lots of ways that you can combine STEM with the arts, all through games and robotics. Pretty fun.
And then we had our basketball and our soccer games too, and those are fairly simple to make. You just set up a little basketball court and let the Ozobots try to make it into the net. So from the small and simple robots to the larger, complex, and more expensive robots, Lego Mindstorms are kind of the gold standard of robotics kits in educational technology here. We've done everything from Lego Mindstorm Rugby. I had a long, painful rugby career, so that's near and dear to my heart. We did everything from Lego Mindstorms Rugby to building catapults to play basketball, to learning about gear ratios to gear up and have robot races. There's a lot of games you can play with these robots, and they are highly customizable. The price tag might scare you away, but if you have the opportunity to pick up some Lego Mindstorms, there are endless games that you can plan and prepare for these. And it's accessible to kids in the younger grades too. Starting really in 2nd grade, kids can handle these robots. All right. On to Minecraft. Now,
I know some of you have played.
Yeah, surely you've heard of Minecraft if you've worked with kids. It is an obsession. It is a lifestyle. It is everything for many, many kids.
Ryan has to do lots of lesson planning.
I do my research. So what is Minecraft? If you're not that familiar with it, Minecraft. If you have it at your library, it's a golden opportunity to teach a million different things.
Capitalize on that beautiful.
Oh, it's perfect. It is perfect. I'll show you how. But if you're not familiar with it, it's an open sandbox game that allows kids to create anything, from dirt houses to working graphing calculators. It has no point. The game literally has no point. There's no end goal. There's no levels. There's no way to win. It's just whatever you want to create and whatever you want to do with it, which is what lends itself so well to lessons like this. One of my favorite all-time lessons is the Flagler's Railroad lesson. I had built a map of Florida inside of Minecraft using a custom map builder tool. And I have the students, we learn about the history of Flagler's Railroad and the East Coast Railroad, and I have the students build Flagler's Overseas Highway from St. Augustine to Key West in Minecraft. And we stop at all the stops that Flagler stopped at, Miami and Palm Beach, and we build a train station and a hotel at each stop. I love this lesson. The kids love this lesson. I make them call me Henry Flagler while they're building it, and then I pay them in Steam cents. So they say, Mr. Flagler, do you like your train station? I say, I love it. It's amazing. And then we have them build this the Long Key Viaduct Bridge, and we have them build it as accurately as possible, and we build a giant resort at Key West as well. It's such a cool lesson, and this is just a small example of how you can teach through Minecraft.
I've also seen some music, some songs created within Minecraft, and I highly recommend taking a stab at it, just playing around. I'm awful at it, but it really has just a ton of uses to teach so many different things about science and ecosystems and history and art and music through it, if you kind of just dive in and try.
It is, and there's a lot of YouTube videos out there that can teach you how to play. Don't be alarmed when many of them are like 9-year-olds. I've learned many things from 9-year-olds on YouTube. But
don't be ashamed. We're all in this together.
All right, I could go on about Minecraft lessons for days and days and days on end. There's actually a lot of them out there as well.
But we're moving on.
But we have too many more things to show you. So if you have access to a 3D printer, then 3D printing games are a ton of fun. This is a staple lesson for us in our 3D printing classes and camps. We design 3D printed games, and you can see the picture there is 3D printed hockey, finger hockey. We design all of our 3D games in Tinkercad, and almost everything in Tinkercad. Tinkercad is an amazingly powerful 3D modeling tool designed for kids, and we have kids as young as kindergarten using it without Many problems at all. There's a lot of benefits to Tinkercad, which you can see there. Kids really pick it up pretty easily. And almost everything you build is 3D printable. You don't actually have to have a 3D printer to 3D print things too. You can always outsource it for relatively cheaply. It's cheaper than buying a 3D printer at least.
You can also talk to Aaron.
That's right.
Swiftland.
Talk to Swiftland. They've got 3D printers. Just some games that you could play, like we mentioned earlier. Little Bit Soccer. We had components of that were 3D printed. Finger golf, football. Actually, this is finger rugby over there, right, hiding. Yeah, little finger rugby. Woo. And then you can actually design and build your own board game pieces. Chess pieces are really popular to design as well. It's a lot of fun to design and 3D print your own games.
The kids take ownership of it, and they're so proud of it, and they can turn it into their own little economy and sell it to their little friends for a few of any management systems. That's what happened at our place.
All right, one final STEAM activity here, something I like to call STEAM Bingo. And this is a great way to just kind of maximize the resources you have. If you have a lot of stuff that's just been sitting around, here's a great way to use it. So this combines Makey Makey, Ozobot, Minecraft, Tinkercad, Legos, Scratch, MBOT, Ollie, Little Bits, all into one lesson. I don't have any other lessons, any other activities that can do all of that. And basically, I give them simple challenges. These are about the easiest things you can do with each of these different technologies, but it does require some basic knowledge of how to use that thing. So kids that have a little more experience will do better with this, but I give them an opportunity to try to see who can get bingo first by completing each of these challenges. Normally they can do 3 or 4 of these, 4 or 5 of these in an hour, and I'll give them one little Steam cent for each one they do, and then for the first person to complete bingo, I'll give them a 5 Steam cent bonus, and then I'll keep giving them Steam cents so they can fill up the whole board. Now, when they just finish a project, they show me, I check it off, and then they move on. But you can just create 100 different variations of this. Instead of building a Lego car, build a Lego boat. Instead of building a house in Tinkercad, build a dog in Tinkercad. A bunch of different variations of this just to kind of keep kids focused, keep kids engaged. It's a really fun game, and it helps them practice a lot of their STEAM skills.
All right. My turn. Art games. So we have a couple music games I wanted to share with you. This one, it's pretty simple. I took the kids outside with some sidewalk chalk, and I had them draw the staff and the treble clef and the bass clefs. And you'll see over here, I taught them how to draw a treble clef and then had them draw it a whole bunch of times. And same thing with the bass clef. And then you make a life-size staff. You have them each make their own, and then they label it. I would tell them, every good boy deserves fudge, and face, F-A-C-E, and they label their own staff. And then we make one giant staff, and they stand on a child. We divide them up into 2 teams. And then someone from each team stands on opposite sides of the staff. I call out a note, and then they have to jump onto that note, and whoever gets it right gets a point for their team. Yes, it's great for getting outside and a change of pace. If being outside isn't ideal, you can just get a big sheet of butcher paper, and then they can do it with some markers, and it's a ton of fun, and they will love it. So next we have a game called Poison. Now, in past webinars, there's 1 or 2 I think where I tried to do this in a webinar, and Ryan likes to poke fun at me. We don't have time to really get into it right now, but these are the rhythms that are essential for playing one of my most popular games called Poison. Basically, a quarter note, the syllables of it match up with this match up with the sound of a quarter note. Apple, those are 2 eighth notes. Watermelon and strawberry with 1 8th note and 2 16th notes. Strawberry.
Hey, all right, Crystal.
Woohoo! Yes! Oh, I'm so glad to hear that. And then coconut. So then I do it a couple different ways, and each of the fruits is a heartbeat, and I have the kids clap a couple different ones together, and then poison. And seriously, the kids ask for this game all the time, and it's super easy. You don't need anything. It's not even that loud because they can do it snapping or just patting on their legs. And it's a really, really good listening game. So then you pick 4 different fruits, you line them up, and the idea behind poison is it's an echo clap game. You play something and then they play it back. But the one particular 4-beat pattern, this one, as this example, is the poison, and if you clap back, then they cannot clap it back. But everything else, they have to clap back. The game teaches a lot of honesty because you're not going to catch everyone who gets out. They have to take themselves out. It's a really, really cool game. So basically, this little poison rhythm goes like this: apple, apple, watermelon, grape. And then, you clap everything else. You go apple, 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 grape, and then they have to clap it back. And then you just keep on going, play things that aren't poison, and then throw in there apple, apple, watermelon, grape. And if they clap it, then they're out. Super fun. And it teaches math also. You could talk about the fractions of these rhythms, 8th notes and 16th notes. So check it out. It's very applicable to STEM and STEAM. Music board games, if you want to kind of go old school, these are three books that I bought online. They're pretty fun. Olympic games for the classroom. You can edit these and kind of create your own. It gives you some templates. These are little board games and other like resources and worksheets and things like that. I generally try to make my own things and try to get it a little more hands-on, but there are always times when the kids just need to kind of relax and have some quiet time, so they're useful to have them. Other things, just some music apps. I kept this in, I think, from the music webinar we did the last month or so, but it's good reference for this webinar. Music apps, Singing Fingers is a really, really fun one. I use the oscilloscope a lot. We go on sound wave scavenger hunts where they have to find different types of sound waves. And the oscilloscope app, you make a sound into the microphone and then it shows you the sound wave of it. So you can relate this one to science a lot. This one here, Notes for Little Composers, is great for the little kids. This one is great, the musician friend chord detector. This one is really good if you're trying to play a song and you want to figure out what the chords are. This one is really, really useful for that. And GarageBand also is, in one of our camps we did last week, I used this one a ton. It's not really a game, but it is very, very useful. They can create their own music and own it, and it's theirs, and they can either record their own sounds or they can use loops that are within the program. And they love it, and it's silent for you, like a lot. I think one misconception about music games and music within libraries is that you think it would make a lot of noise, when in reality, my music games and some of my music classes are much quieter than Ryan's STEM stuff.
That's true.
So headphones go a long way, and if everyone is making their own thing, you need the headphones so that they can focus on their own. So GarageBand, very, very worth it. Okay, so then we also have Art Bingo. Don't want to forget about the visual arts. This is something you can order online. Our art teacher at Full Steam Ahead, she has something called Art Jingo that she uses. But basically, it's just a way to help kids identify the elements of art. And you can go either way. You can have kids have the word if you want to work on their literacy as well. And then you show them a picture of the element that they're trying to find, and then they find that word. Or other way around, you describe it, and that would be good for the little kids. you describe what you want them to find, and then they find the picture that represents it, and they're learning while playing. So then, some general education games that we wanted to throw in here for you as well.
So as a classroom teacher, and to this day as a STEAM teacher, I loved bringing in games whenever I could, just to keep kids learning skills and keep kids doing things, during downtime and off time. And this is a really good time to share just a couple of the games I've used to keep kids busy. I would give a lot of these games as options to do, after they'd finished other work or a project, and I'd set goals for them, or I'd help them set goals that they could try to accomplish to earn some reward. So freerice.com is a really cool website. If you've never seen it, they actually donate 10 grains of rice for each math or vocabulary question that they answer correctly. You can do vocab, you can do math facts, and it's just kind of nonstop practice, and you're helping people, which is really cool. Yep. Free rice has been a long time.
Yeah.
There's a lot of math games out there. Unfortunately, there's a lot of really bad math games out there too. If you go to like coolmathgames.com, it's just loaded with ads. It will download viruses. It will take over your Google Chrome. Unfortunately, there's so many math games out there, and they're so popular that it's very easy for people to just throw them up there and just, waste space with them. But here's one I really like. Simple, no frills arithmetic game. No loading time, no distractions, no ads, just speed. And that's what I'm going for when I'm teaching arithmetic. I want instant recall of my math facts for my students. And so this allows you to kind of set a range from 2 to 100 for multiplication or division. You can say how much time you want. You can say which ones you want to include. So we've got a lot of these we have badges that kids can earn using by accomplishing different arithmetic skills. There's some more fun games out there for sure. There's a lot of them, but I like this simple one. Mm-hmm. So for geography, there's a really fun website. You can see it down there at shepherdsoftware.com/whole bunch of stuff. Cool. And this is a really fun game. It's a fast-paced geography game with options for regional, national, or world geography. And it gives a lot of information in addition to just the names and places. I used to do a competition with this, just a class-wide competition, and I would give out rewards for anybody who could name all the states in under 2 minutes and then under 1 minute. And then eventually we had a little throwdown between me and one other kid. And she kept beating my speed record for naming all the states, and then I would try to go and beat her record, and then she would beat my record. I think we ended at like 36 seconds to name all 50 states, to click on all 50 states. So it was less than 1 state per second. It was pretty crazy to watch.
One extension that I like of this is, if you know that 50 Nifty United States song, where it says all the states in alphabetical order. I love having that as a challenge for the kids, and it gets music in there as well, where they memorize and they learn and they sing, and then I have the kids try to do it for me and see how fast they can say it, and it's amazing how fast they will commit to learning it.
Yeah, with these math and geography games, I mean, they're a dime a dozen. There's hundreds of thousands of them out there. Certainly there's better ones, but these are just ones that I've used and I've tested and I've liked for quite some time now. So, I would recommend trying these if you're looking for anything. So one thing that I think that gets overlooked a lot too is puzzles and board games. Kids are so screen-driven, technology-driven that a lot of times we forget that thinking skills and strategy and problem solving can be learned through some different games. Kids don't seem to play board games like they used to, because it always competes with technology, and there's a lot of value to a lot of these board games. So some of the puzzles, we actually have a rotation that we call puzzles and games, and we give kids time to work on things like Rubik's cubes and wood puzzles and jigsaw puzzles and logic puzzles, Sudoku, and there's 100,000 million trillion puzzle apps out there as well. I didn't list specifically any of them because I honestly don't use them. I like to use this time for kicking it old school and trying out some of these thinking games that require perseverance and patience.
Yeah, we definitely find that some of the magic happens in our program in the downtime. You know, if someone finishes a project early, we always try to have them either take that project a couple steps farther and make it do more, or work on a puzzle or a game or something where they can sharpen their brain and their skills. Um, and and then set a goal for them, something that they have to reach for and earn specifically within that. And then the kids, like I mean, a Rubik's cube. The kids in our program are obsessed with solving the Rubik's cube, and they all now have their own, and they're all working at it. But things like that it works. It just really sharpens their brain.
YouTube, by the way, that's how I learned to solve a Rubik's cube. That's how I teach kids how to solve it. Also, there's a ton of board games out there. I'm sure these will all ring a bell. You can imagine sitting around with your family and playing these. So often kids don't get to play these games anymore because they're so obsessed with the screen time. But Boggle is a great word game, great spelling game. We actually have a challenge batch for Boggle to earn an X amount of points in a round. Checkers requires some strategy. Chess, a little bit more. Othello and Backgammon and Yahtzee and Monopoly, these are all great strategy games. And, giving the kids the time, like Hillary was saying, time to sit down and process and think and strategize and just have fun with these things. It's all part of building their greater educational goals, all part of building these thinking skills, these problem-solving skills that they're going to need in their lifetime.
And before we leave the puzzles and the games side here, also some of the kids in our program created their own game. They kind of combined all of the different things that we've taught them within STEAM. What's it called? Ninball?
Ninball, yeah.
Ninball. Yeah, they
or Ninjorb.
Ninjorb, I don't know. They made these paddles with popsicle sticks, and they glued them all together. And they took a couple different tries at making the paddle that did what they want. They made the game table, and it's kind of like ping pong-ish.
Yeah, it's like air hockey, ping pong, but with custom balls and paddles. It was crazy.
So, and then they created this whole economy where they were, selling and marketing the tools that they made for this game, and so just like letting them have that freedom to create something and then build their own competition, and it's amazing what the kids can accomplish if you give them the means to do so.
And Elizabeth, to answer your question, no, we haven't looked into that. I'll have to check that out. We stick to the classics, but those sound like they could be pretty useful. So thank you for sharing.
Oh yeah, I like that idea, Elizabeth.
All right, so with that, let the games begin. So hopefully you guys got a couple of ideas. We probably shared a fifth of the games that we have, if that. There's so many games out there. We use them all the time. I can't emphasize how much they've helped us over the years to keep kids engaged, to keep kids learning and wanting to come back. Because at the end of the day, kids can be your biggest advocates, and kids will, if they want to be there, if they want to come back again, then they're going to learn a lot more than if they come dragging their feet, kicking and screaming.
Well, we hope you guys enjoyed. Yeah, Gabe, I couldn't agree more that when kids are having fun, they don't realize that they're learning, and that's exactly what we try to make happen. And I think the library setting is just perfect for that. So hopefully we gave you some ideas that you can use, and join us for our next training.
Thank you very much.
And thank you, Ryan and Hillary, for the webinar. Some information and a sneak peek of what is coming up. Attendees, we encourage you to join us next Thursday, July 13th, for our next management webinar dealing with change. On Wednesday, July 19th, for Accidental Systems Librarianship. On Thursday, July 20th, for Copyright and Digital Libraries. And on Friday, July 21st, for H is for Hidden Barriers, Workplace Success Through Inclusion. We encourage you to look at the upcoming webinars and workshops in months ahead and hope you're all able to join us for future training opportunities. As always, please feel to keep checking the continuing education calendar on the Swiftwind website, the Swiftwind Facebook page, or look for your message from the Florida Library listserv. Thank you everyone for attending and have a terrific